Billionaire people's brain versus your brain. How their brain works differently. Your brain is making life-changing decisions every single day, long before you ever become aware of them. Before you consciously choose a goal, a career move, or even a belief about what you're capable of, your brain has already filtered the world for you. It has quietly decided what feels safe, what feels dangerous, what feels realistic, and what feels impossible. Those invisible judgments run in the background, shaping your habits, your risks, your confidence, and ultimately your future, often more powerfully than intelligence, talent, or effort ever could. Right now, as you watch this, your brain is running prediction models based on past experiences. It is estimating outcomes, calculating emotional cost, and deciding what actions are allowed. You don't hear these calculations as thoughts. You feel them as hesitation, comfort, anxiety, or certainty. And most people mistake those feelings for truth. This is why success is not evenly distributed. Most people assume billionaires succeed because they are smarter, better connected, or born different. But neuroscience reveals something far more unsettling. Their brains are operating under a completely different internal rulebook. Not genetically superior, not magically gifted, but neurologically trained to respond to the same situations in radically different ways. Today on Cognitive Crown, we are not talking about motivation, hustle culture, or surface-level success advice. We are breaking down the real psychological and neurological differences between the billionaire brain and the average brain. And once you understand these differences, you may begin to notice how often your own brain quietly works against you, without asking for your permission. Welcome to Cognitive Crown, where psychology meets power. And this is Billionaire People's Brain versus Your Brain. How their brain works differently. Before we compare billionaire brains to your brain, there is one uncomfortable truth you need to understand. Your brain did not evolve to make you rich, successful, or fulfilled. Your brain evolved to keep you alive. For most of human history, survival was the priority. Avoid danger, conserve energy, stick with what's familiar, blend in, don't take unnecessary risks. Those instincts kept our ancestors alive, but in the modern world, they quietly cap human potential. The same brain that once protected us now resists growth, uncertainty, and change. Billionaires do not start with a different brain structure. What separates them is that they systematically train their brains to override survival instincts when those instincts become limitations. They don't eliminate fear. They renegotiate its authority. This is where the real separation begins. Brain difference number 1. Survival mode versus opportunity mode. The average brain operates primarily in survival mode. It constantly scans for threats, not physical threats, but social and psychological ones. Rejection, embarrassment, loss, uncertainty. When your brain senses unpredictability, it activates fear circuits designed to protect you, not empower you. Your heart rate increases, your thinking narrows. Your imagination collapses into worst-case scenarios. The billionaire brain learns to recognize these fear signals without obeying them. Instead of automatically asking, "What if this goes wrong?" their brain asks, "What leverage exists here?" Neuroscience shows that people operating in opportunity mode keep their prefrontal cortex engaged longer, allowing logic, planning, and strategy to override emotional panic. Most people are not lazy or unambitious. They are neurologically overprotected. Brain difference number 2. Short-term comfort versus long-term vision. The average brain prioritizes immediate comfort. Pain now feels more real than reward later. This is why people quit early, procrastinate, or stay stuck in familiar discomfort instead of unfamiliar growth. The future feels distant, abstract, and emotionally weak compared to present discomfort. The billionaire brain is trained to emotionally experience the future as real. In their mind, long-term outcomes feel vivid, concrete, and personal. Brain imaging shows that individuals with strong long-term orientation activate planning and visualization regions more consistently. This allows them to tolerate uncertainty for years without needing constant reassurance. Their patience is not personality-based. It is neurologically reinforced. Brain difference number 3, effort as punishment versus effort as investment. To the average brain, effort feels like something to minimize. Historically, effort meant danger, exhaustion, or wasted energy. So your brain is constantly searching for shortcuts, escapes, and easier paths. Difficulty triggers resistance. The billionaire brain reconditions effort as value. When something feels difficult, their brain interprets it as meaningful, not threatening. This changes dopamine release patterns. Instead of rewarding only outcomes, their brain rewards engagement, progress, and challenge itself. This is why some people feel drained by hard work, while others feel energized by it. The work hasn't changed, the brain's interpretation has. Brain difference number 4, failure as identity, damage versus failure as data. The average brain treats failure as a threat to identity. When something goes wrong, the brain fuses the outcome with self-worth. Shame activates, avoidance follows. Learning shuts down. The goal becomes emotional protection, not improvement. The billionaire brain separates identity from outcomes. Failure becomes information, not a verdict. Psychologically, this allows curiosity to replace defensiveness. Mistakes become feedback loops instead of emotional scars. This is why billionaires fail frequently, but recover quickly. Their brain doesn't ask, "What does this say about me?" It asks, "What does this teach me?" At this point, you might assume billionaire brains feel less fear. They don't. They feel fear just as intensely as anyone else. The difference is that their brain does not treat fear as a stop signal. It treats fear as data, a signal to analyze, not obey. And this subtle neurological shift changes everything, from decision-making to resilience to scale of ambition. Brain difference number 5, risk avoidance versus risk calculation. When a new opportunity appears, the average brain reacts automatically. It asks one emotionally loaded question: what if this fails? That single question triggers the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system. Once activated, the brain inflates potential losses, underestimates personal ability, and prioritizes short-term safety over long-term gain. Possibility collapses into fear before logic ever gets involved. The billionaire brain runs a different mental sequence. Instead of imagining vague disaster, it asks, what is the worst realistic outcome, and can I recover from it? This shifts control from emotion to analysis. Risk stops being abstract and becomes measurable. The brain evaluates downside, recovery time, and reversibility. Most risks are uncomfortable, not fatal. The billionaire brain is trained to distinguish discomfort from danger. This distinction is critical. Discomfort triggers avoidance. True danger demands caution. Confusing the two keeps people frozen. Because of this reframing, billionaires often move forward under uncertainty while others hesitate, even when facing the exact same opportunity. Brain difference number 6, money as security versus money as leverage. To the average brain, money equals safety. It represents protection from embarrassment, instability, judgment, and fear. This belief wires the brain to hoard, minimize risk, and avoid decisions that could temporarily reduce comfort. Psychologically, this creates scarcity thinking. Every expense feels like a loss. Every investment feels threatening. The billionaire brain assigns money a different role. Money is leverage. It buys time, speed, talent, systems, and optionality. It reduces dependence on personal energy and increases reach beyond individual effort. This belief changes neural decision-making patterns. Spending becomes strategic instead of emotional. Saving becomes intentional instead of defensive. Investing becomes a calculated expansion tool rather than a gamble. When money represents safety, fear drives choices. When money represents leverage, strategy replaces fear. Brain difference number 7. Reactive attention versus protected attention. The average brain lives in reaction mode. Notifications, social media, breaking news, emotional conversations, and other people's urgency constantly interrupt cognitive flow. Attention is fragmented into shallow bursts, making deep thinking neurologically difficult. Over time, this weakens the brain's ability to sustain focus, solve complex problems, and generate original ideas. The billionaire brain treats attention as a non-renewable resource. It is aggressively protected. Distractions are reduced. Schedules are structured. Access is limited. This isn't arrogance. It's cognitive hygiene. Neuroscience shows that prolonged, uninterrupted focus strengthens neural circuits responsible for insight, creativity, and strategic reasoning. This is why many billionaires appear obsessive, unavailable, or emotionally distant. They aren't antisocial. They are neurologically disciplined. Brain difference number 8. External control versus internal control. The average brain explains outcomes through external forces. The economy, luck, timing, other people, or unfair systems are seen as the primary drivers of success or failure. This creates an external locus of control. When the brain believes outcomes are controlled elsewhere, motivation drops. Exploration decreases, resilience weakens. The billionaire brain builds an internal locus of control. It asks, what can I influence? What variables can I adjust? What leverage points exist here? Even in bad conditions, the brain searches for agency. Psychologically, perceived control activates problem-solving circuits. Lack of control shuts them down. Belief in agency isn't optimism, it's functional. Because perceived control shapes real behavior, it eventually shapes real outcomes. Brain difference number 9. Problem avoidance versus problem ownership. The average brain sees problems as threats to well-being. Stress is viewed as something to escape, complain about, or minimize. Problems are interruptions to happiness. This triggers a threat response, narrow thinking, reduced creativity, and emotional fatigue. The billionaire brain interprets problems differently. Problems are signals. They point to inefficiencies, unmet demand, broken systems, or opportunities hiding inside friction. This activates a challenge response instead of a threat response. Challenge responses increase focus, creativity, and performance. Threat responses shrink perspective and options. The same problem produces entirely different outcomes depending on how the brain frames it. Your brain decides which state you enter. As these patterns compound over time, the gap between outcomes becomes massive. Not because billionaires are constantly working harder, but because their brains default toward growth, agency, and leverage, while most brains default toward safety, comfort, and avoidance. Safety feels good in the moment, but neurologically and financially, safety is expensive in the long run. Growth always costs first, but it pays later. Brain difference number 10. Reactive learning versus proactive learning. The average brain learns reactively. Learning only happens after something goes wrong, after a failure, after embarrassment, after financial stress, after consequences force attention. This creates a pattern where learning is driven by pain instead of curiosity. The brain stays in survival mode, focused on damage control, not improvement. As a result, decisions become rushed, shallow, and emotionally driven. The billionaire brain learns proactively. It updates its mental models before failure arrives. Instead of asking, "What went wrong?" it asks, "What could go wrong if I stay the same?" This is why billionaire minds consume information obsessively. They read, study, question, and expose themselves to ideas that challenge their current thinking. Learning is not a task. It is a continuous neurological state. Neuroscience shows that curiosity keeps the brain flexible and adaptive. The moment learning stops, the brain shifts into defense mode, protecting outdated beliefs instead of upgrading them. And a defensive brain cannot grow. Brain difference number 11. Fixed identity versus evolving identity. The average brain ties identity to the present moment. Job title, income level, social status, external approval. Self-worth becomes fragile because it depends on conditions that can change. This creates resistance to growth because growth requires change, and change feels like a threat to identity. The billionaire brain builds identity around who it is becoming, not who it currently is. Their self-image is future-oriented, flexible, and internally defined. They are willing to look inexperienced, wrong, or underestimated because their identity is not attached to current validation. Neuroscience shows that identity-driven behavior is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. When identity evolves, behavior follows naturally. Effort no longer feels forced. Discomfort no longer feels personal. But when identity is rigid, growth feels dangerous. And the brain will sabotage progress to protect the self-image. Brain difference number 12. Chasing happiness versus chasing meaning. The average brain chases happiness directly. Comfort, pleasure, ease, emotional highs. But neuroscience shows happiness is chemically unstable. Dopamine spikes fade quickly. The brain adapts. What once felt exciting becomes normal, and then empty. The billionaire brain does not chase happiness. It chases meaning, challenge, and impact. These activate deeper motivational systems tied to purpose, endurance, and resilience. Purpose-driven brains tolerate stress better. They recover faster from failure. They experience effort as fulfillment rather than sacrifice. This is why many billionaires continue working long after financial freedom. Their brain is not addicted to money. It is addicted to progress. The most important realization of this entire video: billionaires are not operating with superhuman brains. They are operating with trained brains. Every repeated thought strengthens a neural pathway. Every repeated behavior teaches the brain what to prioritize. Over time, the brain becomes optimized for whatever you practice most. If you practice comfort, the brain perfects avoidance. If you practice challenge, the brain strengthens growth. Neuroplasticity makes this unavoidable. This means your current situation is not a life sentence. It is a reflection of past mental conditioning. And mental conditioning can be changed, but only through awareness and repetition. Most people wait for confidence before acting. Billionaire brains act before confidence appears, because confidence is not the cause, it is the effect. Action reshapes belief, not the other way around. Each uncomfortable decision slightly rewires the brain. Each avoided challenge reinforces fear. Your brain is always learning, whether you intend it to or not. This is why mindset advice often fails. People try to think differently without changing behavior, but behavior is what trains the brain. Billionaires think differently because they acted differently long before results appeared. Their brain adapted to match their actions, not their wishes. If this video made you uncomfortable, that is a good sign. Discomfort means your brain is being challenged instead of entertained. On Cognitive Crown, we don't chase motivation. We expose how your mind actually works, because once you understand your brain, you stop fighting yourself. Core psychological differences. This video revealed 12 core psychological differences between billionaire brains and average brains. These differences shape how fear is processed, time is perceived, effort is valued, failure is interpreted, money is viewed, attention is protected, control is claimed, problems are approached, learning is pursued, identity is formed, purpose is experienced. None of these are genetic privileges. They are trained mental patterns. The question is no longer whether billionaire thinking works. The question is whether you are willing to rewire your own brain. Because once you do, your environment responds differently. Opportunities become visible, challenges feel lighter, and progress stops feeling accidental. If you want psychology-based insights that actually change how you think and act, subscribe to Cognitive Crown. This channel is for people who want mental power, not just information. Because the real crown is not money. It is control over your own mind.